Shirley, Brian, members of the family, members of Zell's larger political family, and to all the former governors and first ladies and senators and others who are here. There is probably no one who could speak here who feels more of a personal debt to Zell Miller than I do, and to Shirley, and especially for the extraordinary kindness over decades she has extended to Hillary. Every time I saw them, I thought they were like two Methodist Sunday school teachers getting together, ruining the fact that everyone else was just not quite as caring as they were about X, Y, and Z. So in 1991, I was giving a speech here, and I checked in with the Governor and First Lady of Georgia, and they asked me to spend the night. And Zell had been to the speech, so I spent the night. And we stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning talking. And maybe because I talked too much, maybe because he was having a good time. But essentially, after all those hours of talking, his advice was, if you want to run for president, you need to call Paul Begala and James Carville and give shorter speeches. Well, I took 50% of the advice. And so began this long relationship. I never won a primary election till we got to Georgia. And so everybody said, oh, Clinton's got to win big in Georgia, and he's got to win by at least 40%, and he'll never get there, and he'll be toast, which is what I had been warned I would be if I entered the presidential primary. "57% later, it worked out different. And there is in my office in New York today, and in every office I have occupied since that time, a picture of an elderly lady living in rural Georgia in front of a house that, as far as I could tell, had never had any paint on it, just like my great-grandparents' house in the country, with one of my signs on it. I remember every stop I made and every bus trip. I remember the whole deal. So I come to you in almost indentured servitude and gratitude, surely for what you and Zell did for me and our family, and to give me the chance to serve. So you are entitled to discount what I think, but I not only liked Zell Miller, I admired him. And I got him when he was driving me and every other Democrat crazy. And you got a lot of people here in this audience who spent their lives trying to win elections. And some, I hope, with more elections yet to win. And when you get to be my age, I think the most important thing is, how do you keep score? The Methodists follow John Wesley's scorekeeping. Do all the good you can for all the people you can in all the ways you can, however you can. In other words, show up every day and make something happen. Zell Miller believed in government. He believed government should offer hope and opportunity. A hand up, not a hand out. That's why he never left our party. But he also believed that we owed people who disagree with us human decency, human respect, a presumption that their motives are just as good as ours, their objectives for the future are just as honorable as ours. Too much of that's gone now. So the first thing I want to say about my friend is, beyond what I owe and what he did, he kept score in what I think was the right way. He respected public service as an honorable endeavor. He thought every great country had to have an effective government that offered hope and a hand up. He did not believe that people who disagreed with him by party were by definition bad people or the objects of destruction. That particularly in times of great stress, we should find a way to see each other as people and reach across the lines that divide us. And finally, he really was a good Methodist in the way he kept score. So I'd be making a mistake if I got off this program and he would be talking to me in my dreams tonight. You forgot to tell him that there are 1.8 million people who got college educations in Georgia because of the Hope Scholarship. You forgot to tell them that there are 1.6 million little kids who were in preschool programs because of this effort. And he was like, and you forgot to tell him, you rascal, that you had to give me credit when you announced your national college scholarship aid program and say that it was modeled on the Hope Scholarship program. And it was, and we'd given 10 million people aid nationally before I left office. Goodness knows how many now. All because a guy came out of Young Harris, Georgia, joined the Marine Corps, never forgot where he came from, and believed the government ought to give hope and a hand up. So that's what I want you all to think about. When you think of Zell Miller, he was eloquent. It was amazing. He loved George Jones and Shakespeare. You know, all these things we can say. But he kept score in the right way. He did all the good he could. He was other-directed, and his adversaries were not his enemies. Except briefly when they get mad at you. Now, I hope by saying that I have in some way repaid his gifts of kindness to me and to Hillary. She had a lot of fun serving with him in the Senate, and that's when he was sort of drifting over and endorsing George and all that. And she said, she called me one day and she said, Bill, all of our old friends are just desperate about Zell. And she called one who was in this church today and said, don't you give up on him. You got too much at stake in your life. People's lives take different turns. We think different things in different places under different circumstances. We are the product of our past. And I think that's something else we ought to remember. His enemies in his young life called him Zigzag Zell. I think in all the ways that were most important, he was phenomenally consistent. People first, country and human dignity over short-term partisanship, and keep score right. A life in politics is about other people. You came a long way from young Harris. Just one more thing I want to say. It means a lot to me as a Southerner that you were the first person to try to take the Confederate flag off. It means a lot to me as a Southerner that when Andy Young went to the United Nations, you were, I think, the first political figure to endorse John Lewis, and that he's still there, and that we're about to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination, and Atlanta is represented in Congress by somebody who was part of the original team, and that he was a part of that. He said that he was always going home. The African American churches refer to funerals as homegoings. So, my friend, you are finally home. You fought the good fight. You've kept the faith. And those of us who were lucky enough to know you and Shirley for any part of the long lives you have shared together are richer for it. Godspeed.